Hello, everybody out there in YouTube. We are the Middle-Aged Guys coming back to you after a little bit of a layoff because real life happens. In this particular video, we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about probably our favorite game company currently right now is probably Nintendo. Okay, no surprise, but you know, what do you expect? All right, let me get the introductions out of the way. I'm the Reverend.
The theme here.
And I'm Grey Mouse 1.
Nintendo, as you know, especially if you're somebody who's our age, has been around for a long time. And yes, they do get away with a lot of marketing based off nostalgia, okay? That, of course, was a huge item of interest earlier this year with the NES Classic Mini. And that, of course, was another item of interest just last week with the release of the Super Nintendo Classic Edition right here. You know, not only that, but Metroid Samus Returns and the accompanying amiibo, even with all of my bitching and moaning about that. Yes, I know. All right. Excuse me. Okay. You know, Nintendo obviously has a grasp of their back library and everything else. They also have a grasp. You know, it looks like they're learning a few lessons about knowing what they have a hold of that'll actually sell better. You know, the SNES Classic Edition sold out nationwide when it released out on Friday. No big surprise. Everybody went ahead and they expected that. What I don't think a lot of people expected was the fact that there were a lot more physical units actually in stores on opening day than people initially expected. Where the NES Classic Edition, it wasn't common to sit there and have the bigger stores only like receive a dozen or so. A lot of the bigger stores in a lot of areas were receiving more than 100 units of these things. Didn't keep them from flying off shelves within the first hour the doors opened, but they received a lot more. Okay, now for those who are really intrepid, they went out of their way and they cracked this thing open. They noticed that, hey, the board inside is exactly the same as the board that's inside the NES Classic Edition, all right? Which comes as no surprise, considering that all the way back on September 12th, Nintendo themselves went ahead and they announced that they are going to be remarketing. They're going to be bringing back the NES Classic Edition for an encore sale, all right? Sometime in, I believe, around March of 2018 or summer of 2018. Okay. Now, if you're somebody like ourselves, that's actually some pretty good news. You know, I think that's something to be happy about, especially if you're somebody who, I don't know, doesn't want to go ahead and spend like $400, $500. I mean, I've seen some ridiculous listings for the Super Nintendo Classic Edition all the way up to $5,000.
What?
On Craigslist. Yeah. Stupid, ridiculous. All right. But you know what's funny is that a lot of the listings on eBay, they've been steadily dropping in price. Like the first afternoon that they were up, they were like at $400, but they've been steadily dropping down. Where I think the average right now for the SNES Classic Edition is something like $150 with room to negotiate for price. All right. Guys, what do you think about the fact that Nintendo's got another hit on their hands with the SNES Classic Edition, and the fact that obviously they've learned something because they're planning on bringing the NES Classic Edition back?
Wait a minute. A hit? Duh. I mean, come on. That's just... It was more insulting when it was like, well, we didn't know that it was going to be in demand like that. That was more insulting to me as a gamer than anything else, you know, especially if they saw and looked as to say that everybody was like, oh my God, we're so looking forward to this.
Yep. What about you, Grey Mouse? What were your thoughts on all of that stuff? Or the newer news regarding a lot of that stuff?
I'm just glad that the SNES Mini actually landed in gamers' hands, vice scalpers' hands.
Oh, and it's going to stay that way because...
Due to the fact that one per customer rule, that looks like all the retailers are holding to it. So hopefully when they do get more shipments in, that everybody will be able to have one or get one.
Yeah, because the thing is that with the NES Classic Edition, I think, what was it? They said overall it sold 2.3 million consoles. That was worldwide. That was for like everybody in all of the territories.
Yeah, that's not enough.
Yeah, for the SNES Classic Edition, that's actually, I think they shipped more than that, like the launch day. Than they did all of the units shipped for the NES Classic Edition. What I think happened was that either Reggie or the investors, or a combination of Reggie and the investors, went ahead and really sat down with the folks at the Japanese corporate office and said, "You guys are fucking stupid, and we are leaving money not on the table but on the fucking floor. Okay, if we don't decide to go ahead and bring back this console, which, honestly speaking, probably the NES Classic Edition probably only cost them like $20 to go ahead and manufacture. The board is the same. All they need is the shells. The fucking wiring and everything leading up to the controllers themselves is probably really similar." And they were like,
controller cords longer.
Well, yeah, that's the only thing that they're going to have to fix. All right, but it really doesn't make sense that they go back to going ahead and manufacturing it, because everything's the same. It's not like they're using completely different model board or anything. Everything plugs up the same. All right, so it's pretty interesting that they're actually able to do that. This and the fact that Metroid: Samus Returns came back really kind of proves that there's a lot of value in their back library, and that people look. Here's the thing: if you're sitting there and saying, "Well, people are just nostalgic for it," to a point. But what you cannot deny is that these fucking things have good games on them. Okay, which I really can't talk about, considering other things that are on the horizon, like the Atari box. All right, but that's another video. We covered that someplace else. Okay, but it seems like with this particular type of product hitting the store shelves and everything, everybody's kind of getting into it. Thankfully, a lot of the first party folks are getting into it. We know the flashbacks have been around for a long time. We know the Sega Classic consoles have been around for a long time. Not that the build quality for them has ever been all that good, but they've been around for a long time. But this has gotten to the point where even they announced that there's going to be a mini Commodore 64 coming out in 2018. All right. Now I'm going to tell you right now, I was lucky to be exposed to gaming on the Commodore 64. I guess lucky if, after typing in the script to go ahead and launch a game on the 5 1/4 inch floppy, to know that I could go make myself a sandwich and come back before it's actually finished loading and shit like that. But, I mean, I've actually experienced some of the games that have been on there, and the system was around for a long time. It actually had quite a few quality games that were ported over to it. What do you guys think? Is this just another fad? Is it something that you guys are interested in, or or is it just another curiosity that's following into this trend?
Okay, look, the only way for this to work for me is if they release a whole library with it. But there's going to be licensing issues for sure. I think that's going to be a problem. But
yeah,
for those that played a Commodore before or never actually had one, or they wanted to get one or they just want to experience it, fine. It's a good idea. I heard that any freaking keyboard and mouse can actually hook up to this thing.
It's, you know what? If they're using USB slots,
yeah,
I think that would probably be possible. I mean,
that would be. I mean, come on. But this thing better not be above $40.
Let's see here. Right now.
I mean, I think I'm even saying I'm giving that a stretch.
Yeah. Well, right now, from what I'm looking at from the information that they've released, okay, The Commodore 64 Mini is a small replica of the console. It features an HDMI output, 2 USB ports. All right, it supports
HDMI.
Yeah, I know. That's like 120 pixels, 120p. Yeah. Let's see here. HDMI output, 2 USB ports. It supports save states. Comes preloaded with a selection of games. All right. And it's got a full list of games that come listed on it, which is actually a lot better than another fucking console we talked about previously. And here's
$20.
Yeah, and here's the kicker. They say it's going to retail around $70, which which is the price of a brand new game. And I'm looking at their website. It looks like 2030. Looks like it is loaded with 36 games, or at least that's what they have confirmed right now.
Okay. The only thing, all right, they better not have load times on this thing.
Well, hopefully they don't emulate that, because that would suck shit.
No. I will jettison the thought of having it if that's the case. There's no way at this time where they should emulate that for nostalgic purposes. Gray Mouse, what are your thoughts about the Commodore 64 Mini or Classic?
So with the Commodore 64 games, you had to open up the game, look in the manual to get code to type in to make the game run. So yeah, I hope they don't emulate that.
I hope that's the case too.
I hope you got a keyboard and a mouse, and certain joysticks are going to work.
I hope you could pick from a list.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because
so you got to click on it, and then you got to click on it, and then you still got to fucking put in the command.
Give me the 5th word on the 20th line of page 9 of your instruction booklet.
The instruction booklet will be a fucking Bible at that point.
Oh, man.
And you know damn well that games and gaming consoles and stuff like that do not come with manuals anymore.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully the folks who are putting this together, I believe it's the company is Retro Games. Hopefully Retro Games Limited takes that in consideration. The grand thing is that it's really not hard to go ahead and make that part of the UI, part of the launcher and everything else, because the ROMs for the actual games themselves are minuscule. They used to fit on 5.25-inch floppy disks.
Right.
So, and those were something like, I don't know, 32K or something like that.
I was about to say it's 64 kilobits.
Yeah. Most of them were not even that big. So, yeah.
I mean, 64.
Nope.
It was called Commodore 64, but it wasn't 64 gigs. It wasn't 64 bags. 64 kilobytes.
Yeah.
Wow. It's not good. It's not going to get better than this.
Well, you know what's going to be very interesting? I'm interested in it. I wouldn't mind reading those text games again. It seems to me like some of those text adventure games are some of the best games that you've played, at least growing up. I mean, it's a wall of text and you got to read it, but you got to type in go right, go left, use sword, use shield.
No, I'm not dying by dysentery again. Fuck that, all right?
Unfortunately, it doesn't look like Oregon Trail is part of the list here. I'm looking at it right now.
No. They're gonna have to make a later list. That game has to be there.
Yeah. Well, I know Oregon Trail is actually, I think it's public domain now, and you can actually there are browser versions that you can find out there.
Domain,
so yeah, that's public domain.
Playing it on your 4K TV. I can't even finish that.
What trips me out is you said HDMI.
Well, here's
the stretch 8 pixels.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing.
A clear version of HD Commodore games?
With pixels so sharp you can cut your eyeballs with them, pretty much. Yeah. But here's the thing. I mean, all right.
Wait, the color palette. Wait, hang on. The color palette of the Commodore 64 is what? 4 colors?
4 colors on screen? Yeah, I think so. 4 or 8. Yeah, 4 or 8, something like that. But here's the thing. All right. The funny thing is that with as many jokes as we can go ahead and we can throw at this thing, I'm more excited about this little piece of shit than I am the Atari box. And I hate to, keep kicking sand on that thing. But, if there's anybody out there who wants to understand our reasoning behind, like, why we get excited for certain things, with this, it has a list of games.
Exactly.
Right? It shows shit that it's like, hey, look, and I know California Games is one of the games that are listed on here. I know the Commodore 64 version of California Games was better than the fucking NES version.
Yes, it was.
All right?
Yes, it was.
I mean, there are things for those gamers who remember that can be excited about. So this actually gives us something like that. Okay. But that's we're segueing away from the Nintendo stuff right into the Commodore 64. But I think that's pretty cool. But, like I said, I think a lot of this marketing stuff, for as much as people fault Nintendo for doing the same exact fucking thing every time, again, they're setting trends that other companies are following into the market.
Once again.
Once again, by doing something just a little bit different.
But wasn't the Genesis or
Sega did the whole little Genesis with 80 games built into it.
Yeah, that was.
And then as the Reverend alluded to earlier, there has been Atari, freaking flashbacks. There's even the ColecoVision flashback.
Yeah.
But I think
Nintendo just didn't think this up.
No, they aren't the ones who are originating the idea. Okay, but I will say, but they are the first party, actual manufacturers to sit there and say, hey, look, instead of have AT Games or At Games put out, piece of shit hardware, all right, with bad emulation, mistimed emulation, and horrible sound output. Okay. To go ahead and host 40 of our games and then 40 fucking Flash homebrew games that you can find someplace else on the fucking net. All right. Nintendo went out of their way and they were like, hey, these are games that were on our console that we're putting together, solidly first party. This is our shit. We're going to go ahead and we're going to put it out. We're going to back it with warranty and everything. All right.
And some good third party games.
Yeah. And some good third party games. I think, that it's interesting with how that goes. But yeah, it's, again, I don't think here's the thing with the Atari flashbacks and the Sega Genesis, like the mini consoles and stuff like that, is that those have been put out like for fucking years by anybody who's willing to go ahead and license the hardware out and everything. And they're sold for nothing. They're not meant to make any sort of marketing waves. They're not meant to make any sort of big profit except for whoever's licensing the stuff out, because they're produced really cheap, all right, and they're sold for really cheap.
And that's
and
why
for the folks
good.
Yeah, and there's a reason why you find it in Bed Bath & Beyond and you don't find it in like GameStop or Best Buy. It just makes sense that way, all right?
I'm going to go to a Bed Bath & Beyond tomorrow and see if I can find this thing, just because you said that.
Yeah, you probably can. You probably find the Atari flashback there, all right? But yeah.
So, wait a minute, guys. I got a real quick question. When is it enough?
So, when is the limit set? The Nintendo 64 Classic?
I mean, because the first party companies, Nintendo or whatever, they're gonna run this.
Is PlayStation gonna get smaller than this?
They're gonna run it into the ground.
Yeah, it's called the PSP. PSP can run those games.
Pretty much. But I mean, it's like, so what do we have next? We'll have
a Saturn Mini.
We'll have a Saturn Mini. We'll have a
Dreamcast Mini. Sign me up. If you do that shit correctly. Look, just don't fucking kickstart it. Don't fucking kickstart it or crowdfund.
You're forgetting that Sega.
Wait, I hear that.
It's Sega. So just
they did the fucking Genesis.
Throw that idea.
No, they did the fucking Genesis. If you do the fucking Saturn and if you do the fucking Dreamcast, fuck, dude, sign me up for that.
I don't think.
God damn it.
If they did, I would be
killer.
Huh?
I said, Grave Mouse, you're a hope killer. No, I'm fucking around with you. But look, Grave Mouse, I see your point. I do, because this is Sega, and they're like out, and they won't. But come on, they got to be looking at this. Who else isn't looking at this? Is going?
Well, it's obvious. I mean, Atari's looking at this, going,
No, Atari, fuck that Atari box. Look at the Commodore. The Commodore's doing it right. They're releasing their shit with games.
Yep, and they're at least announcing games.
Yeah,
and they're not asking for like close to $300 for the fucking thing. You know, and they're producing and they're producing and they're marketing it themselves instead of begging for funds on Indiegogo.
Well, see, the problem with it is that Saturn, aren't their games kind of notoriously hard to emulate?
Yeah, and the thing is that that's
Dreamcast on the other hand,
Dreamcast games are not.
Dreamcast on the other hand is different, but Saturn.
But the thing about it is, if they're going to put certain games on there, then it won't be. It'll just be all right. It'll be past emulation at this point because certain games were arcade perfect.
Yeah, I think if the trend continues the way it goes, thankfully, all of that stuff is possible. Unfortunately, whether or not it actually happens, is something completely different altogether.
I'll put another Sega Saturn thing down here. I'll put another Dreamcast thing down. I have two of each already. Fuck. If you give me fucking something like that with a certain library of games, shit.
I mean, all you gotta do is do a quick search on the internet now, and you'll see. You know, they're saying that Nintendo 64 Mini.
Well, yeah, because the hardware can handle it. It's really easy. The hardware can handle it.
So I mean, you know what I mean. So. I don't think this is going to stop anytime soon, but eventually it's going to hit a brick wall, and I just hope that it doesn't hit it hard. You know.
Well, look at how many Atari flashbacks there are.
Well, I think the one thing for me personally is that I think they're a good way to go ahead and preserve timeless classic games for each and every console. Okay.
Oh, I agree with that.
Granted, with a lot of these consoles, the library is so big you can't have enough games on it. Okay,
no.
That's not going to stop modders from hacking the fuck out of it and dropping 900 titles into it, anyways, because they're going to learn how to do that. But one of the things that's that we got to go ahead and that I especially get kind of excited about is that look, if there's a way that, especially when it comes to the disc-based systems, the GameCube, the Saturn, the PlayStation like theme brought up, the Dreamcast. Look, I know those are all disc-based systems and they've got moving parts and all of that has a shelf life. Okay, all of that stuff is going to break down sooner or later. All right, if you're going to ensure to me a way in the future that I can play some of the best games in perpetuity without having to worry about the moving parts in a solid state system, I'm all for that, really. Okay, just don't sit there and be really, really vague about like what's actually included in the box. Okay, don't sit there and try to market to me on real wood finish. Okay, and you better come to me correct, saying, "Hey, look, we're really serious about actually manufacturing this thing. We're going to put some real effort into it." Instead of begging for my shit on Indiegogo.
Yeah. Maybe this is the way that the American Dreamcast Mini will incorporate the American Shenmue 2 on it.
Quite possibly. Yeah. Is there any other thoughts that we have on this particular trend, guys, or anything else we want to go ahead and throw onto the pile?
All I got to say is Nintendo, if you're going to you are going to release the minis, the classic editions, come on. Stock the fucking shelves to the point where the stock is going up to heaven, because regardless of what you do, this thing is going to fly off the shelves. It will. I don't think these things are going to sit on shelves for like generations. You still have the freaking Switch that are still flying off shelves. They're getting little stocks, and they're just so yeah. I don't think there's no way there's overstocking of these. I don't think there's any way of that. Not anytime soon, anyway.
Yeah, I really don't think there's a way that they could sit there and overextend their idea of how popular these sort of things are, especially when it comes to their older established systems. You know, but really, even if they don't get that far, what I really want them to do is, you know, DS player, please, 3DS player, please. A way to play DS and 3DS games on a larger screen, please. All right.
Yeah, you have the Super Game Boy. You have the Game Boy player for the GameCube.
Yeah.
Maybe the next classic will be the Super Game Boy. Would I have a Super Nintendo Mini Classic with the Super Game Boy mini attachment to it that has Game Boy games and Game Boy Color games built into it already? Or
if there's something they can go ahead and plug into one of those USB ports on the Switch dock, you know, just saying. All right. But with that, I think what we're going to do with this particular one before we run over time, we're going to go ahead and close up right here, folks. What are your thoughts? We really want to know, what are your thoughts on the fact that a lot of these mini systems are coming into vogue? First-party companies are re-releasing a lot of this stuff. Is it just plain nostalgia? Are they trying to market these things for suckers who are, you know, heartbroken or have fond memories for that stuff? Yes, we know in a large part they are. All right. But yeah. But is there a real upside? What are your thoughts on the fact that all of this stuff is coming back? You know, is Nintendo doing the right thing by doing all this? Are other companies doing the right thing by jumping into this sort of thing? You can let us know by leaving us a comment below. While you're at it, go ahead and mash on that like button. And if you really like what we're doing here and you want to see more, hit subscribe and turn on those notifications so you know whenever we drop a new video out here on YouTube. We are the middle-aged guys, and all of our bullshit, well, we were talking about Nintendo for a moment, then we talked about the Commodore 64, then back to Nintendo and everybody else with mini consoles. And yeah, this particular video, we're going to end it right here. I'm the Reverend.
The theme here.
I'm Grey Mouse 1.
Once again, for the benefits of common sense logic and mini console gaming everywhere now, is the Odyssey going to do this? I've already seen electronic football and electronic baseball. They brought those back. Just don't stop with this. Keep it going.
Please.
Yeah, and bring out more of these. And the NES Classic and all that. Credits.